Well, did you see in Westworld the kid on the playground with the mask on?
Yes.
And there was a great line that had me thinking about just what's going on, where Dolores is like, "Hey, their system is so fragile. It's so easy to topple over or whatever." I can't remember the exact line, but there were a few things that had me thinking about current events in this episode.
Yeah, I think. Well, and just when they were trying to heal her, they were trying
Yeah.
trying to pinpoint what it was that was wrong with her, and it was nothing.
I thought that was an interesting scene also because they didn't seem to they were relying on a machine to tell them what to do. Like it almost seemed like they didn't really know what to do. And Caleb, having training, military
Yeah,
training or
Army medic or something.
Yeah, he jumped right in.
Well, yeah, and that was interesting too because in the future, it appeared that there were several people whose jobs were either assisted or directly done by either AI or robots. So when you talk about how frail people were, I'm sure that we talk about people living in isolation now or living in quarantine now. People's worlds can basically be catered to them. Things can be brought to them. The outside world is at that point in time, this alternate future. I'd imagine that it's, viruses and everything else are, I would say, lower just because human contact is lower. People are interacting more with, machines and everything else. So I think that if something did have a virus or something did have bacteria or something like that, she talked about, the human body being fragile. I'd imagine that their ecosystem would, completely collapse if something like this happened.
Well, shit, man. She when Charlotte was talking to her son, she pointed out that elephants were gone. There were no elephants.
Yeah.
In their world, I guess they had all died off or whatever.
Well, who knows? Like approaching,
exactly.
or like.
So that was the theme of the episode. Basically, was Charlotte. Who is Charlotte and Caleb. I mean, if you had to give it a theme, an actual theme, you may say finding who you are. These two characters trying to figure out who it is they are and not wanting to really be defined by someone else. There's a great theory about Charlotte we'll get to in a minute that I just read before we got on here. But that seemed to be the theme. But obviously, everyone's trying to figure out who is Charlotte. Any guesses?
Just by based off what the next episode is, I don't know. Now I was thinking because you had mentioned you texted me and said Teddy.
Yeah, that was a theory going around. Yeah,
but I don't know if it's not William because the next episode, the preview for it was the Man in Black. It was an older William. So now I'm like, well, I don't know because Dolores and William, when William was younger, before he became the Man in Black and was, doing some crazy stuff, he loved her. Like that was his girl. So with her spooning Charlotte, I don't know if it was Teddy or if it was William. I think it's one of the two, but I don't know which.
All right. You want the big theory online that I just read? That's pretty interesting. Peter Abernathy, her father.
That'd be fucking weird.
Yes and no. Yes, but there
is no.
Well, they didn't do anything. No. Follow me.
No. I'm not saying that it's like it was sexual. I'm just saying
exactly.
Like, what parent is going to be balled up in a fetal position while their kid is spooning them?
Well, remember how crazy he was.
Well, yes.
This is where the theory. Remember, he
broke.
He broke exactly. So and the cutting, just how crazy he got. And remember, they were trying the whole serial killer thing. like, and the pleasure he took when, or she, excuse me, Charlotte or whatever, if it's him, took killing the one guy, and then talking about how remembering about being the predator or being a predator. Remember, they were trying to do, I guess, the programming with him, making him a serial killer. And someone had
Yeah.
broken it down, and I was like, "Oh shit!" It didn't even register with me. Also, there was a line she says something about, I don't know, something about their relationship, and they were saying how it sort of fit. My gut reaction was Teddy, but then I was like, maybe that's too obvious.
I think Teddy is Chibs, personally.
Mm. Oh, that reminds me. Some of my notes. So, at the beginning, so this thing jumps around the timelines, and at the beginning, when Dolores is putting, introducing Charlotte to, what it is she's going to be doing, she shows that she has Bernard, and this is before, I guess, she puts Bernard out on his journey, and she makes the point, everyone has a role to play. Um, which leads me to believe that whatever Bernard is up to is gonna be that she wants it, you know.
Yeah, and well, and this is slightly off topic, but not really. His was a different color. Did you notice
Yes,
that?
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I wonder what that means. Like, I don't know
Well, I
what
think.
that.
Well, remember he was Ford was trying to copy the real Bernard, or can't remember. It wasn't Bernard. Whatever the guy's name was.
Yeah,
As much as he could. And so I don't know. Maybe it was a special one that was
yeah, it
mimicking
was.
a real human.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, and even when he was, and then the previous episodes when Bernard's like trying to deprogram himself, there's a lot of things that he's doing that when you look at Teddy, even when he was going through his programming, or Maeve, or all these people who are having a hard time dealing with things that he's not. Like, he's he seems to be more, like what you said, human than the other ones do. They're more, Matrix Neo-ish, as opposed to him, which is more, Bernard's more human than the other ones.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I'm just curious to what exactly is Dolores's overall plan. How, and as far as Caleb's role in it, she seems compassionate towards him, but that could be cold and calculating. You know what I mean? Like that could just be clearly she needs him, or at least she thinks she does. Um, but the compassion that it appears she's showing may not be compassion at all. It may just be, there's during the ambulance sequence. I really liked when he was, the guys were trying to kill her. She was very Terminator-ish, like the way she moved, the way she killed. It was very cold. It reminded me of something straight out of Terminator, which I thought was cool. And there was another sequence where they were putting together the riot bot, which I was like, oh, that's like RoboCop. So there was a sort of a jump around of different science fiction vibes I was getting in this episode.
Well, even with the Rico app, with the people looking for her, they started looking for him too, but it appeared as though when she killed the guy that was back by the police car, she never touched the weapon. Like, she used the other guy's hand to pull the trigger so that she would never be you know, I guess, attached to that murder.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it was, she didn't have to, wipe her prints from the gun or not, but like you said, Terminator-ish. But they, in the post-credit scene thing, the making of, they talked about, they did, and I didn't realize this until they showed this. They don't do a lot of diagonal shots. They do a lot of straightforward shots. They don't do a lot of two-person shots. So, and I didn't know, I'm not a film major, but when they showed Caleb standing next to Dolores, those are diagonal shots, I guess. But they said that they were doing that to show like a web. So she's like basically trying to trap Caleb in this web because he is, trying to be nicer, trying to help her, and she's got this whole thing that she's trying to set up, and he's just kind of a fly trapped inside of it. But by the end of it, they stopped doing the diagonal shots and started doing more of a straightforward shot, trying to imply that she does feel compassion for him and that he is not in the web anymore. So I was like, oh, okay. So
I love when directors plan out their shots to tell the story, and it's not just Michael Bay-esque, where it's just like put the camera wherever. Yeah, exactly. So no, that's interesting. Yet again, I did not get to watch that like last week.
I love watching it because Jonathan Nolan talks all the time, and then the cinematographer guy, I don't remember his name, is something Cummings. I think it's Nathan Cummings. That's his name. But he always talks about the camera angles and stuff, and then one of the other cinematographers always talks too.
The villain of the season is Serac.
Oh,
at least
wait. Before we talk about that, remember I was talking about the Matrix stuff?
Yeah.
Jonathan Nolan said that they didn't need to make any Matrix references because it was already, the whole premise is very Matrix-esque already. I was like, holy shit. They said this whole thing is very much like the Matrix. He said, we just don't need to be plugging people up like human batteries. I was like, damn. All right, go ahead.
If no, you're right though. If you go back to the beginning of season 1, Dolores is in a simulation. It's not the real world. It's a fake world, and she's serving a purpose for another group of people. There's so many similarities to the Matrix. Serac is being pushed as the villain. He's the guy that's running Insight, which is collecting data on every single human being and basically creating its own simulation to predict and basically know what people, where they fit in the machine, essentially. The machine being society. And, very creepy how Dolores is able to tell Caleb everything about himself, including where they assume he'll die. And that
was weird.
guide him career-wise, and they'll guide him based on what he can do and how he fits in the bigger picture. The idea of eliminating free will to a degree, I guess, is sort of the argument. But there was an interesting line, and I can't remember who said it in the episode, but they basically said that Serac's connection with Delos spans back 2 decades, which got me thinking, did he ever have any interaction with Ford? And if so, are we going to get flashbacks, or are we going to get story? What is Serac's motivation? What is his beginnings? What is his dream for the world? Is he necessarily a bad guy?
Well, and I think, remember, we said that if Bernard is modeled after somebody who was one of the originators, it was supposed to be Ford and Bernard at the beginning, and Bernard was modeled after, I can't remember the other guy's name. But if those two were supposed to be the original founders, then maybe it's a flashback with Bernard going back, and talking with Serac. But I wouldn't necessarily say that them mapping stuff out is just for, marketing or whatever else. My thing is that if Serac is maybe even AI, this may turn into, a Terminator type thing, or even more of a Matrix style thing, where if they could basically get information on everybody and then replace all people with basically hosts, there are no more people. Like, it's basically everybody's a host. and then they can live out people's lives as unorganic beings.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I could see if your vision of, thinking of the future of the world and the idea of immortality and um,
Like altered
this,
carbon.
yeah, absolutely. This being the natural evolution through knowledge and developing machines. Um, that's a cool idea, and maybe that's where this is headed. His name was Arnold Weber. I just looked it up. Ford. That was
Yes,
it
that's right.
was
Arnold.
Robert Ford and Arnold Weber, and Arnold Weber, killed himself. Um, and Bernard is a replica of that.
I remember
So
that. I just couldn't remember what
I couldn't
Arnold's name
either.
was.
I could not at all. Let me see. Going through the notes. That was it. This was relatively a straightforward episode compared to what the series usually does. Um, how would you rank it compared to the first couple episodes?
uh, I liked it. However, my favorite episode was I like Maeve
Yeah,
better,
yeah,
but and I liked what they did with Caleb in this episode and like the direction they went with Dolores and stuff. I'm intrigued with what they're doing with Charlotte, and I like the kind of direction they went with her taking out the pedophile in the park. I did like the fact that they also showed that people have, it's almost like a watchdogs type thing. Like the guy
yeah,
had the little control box and he turned off all the cameras because his intent was to diddle kids. Like he's
yeah. That was very
like
uncomfortable. The petting
yeah,
the hand thing. I was like, ooh,
yeah.
that
And
was
and she goes over there and it felt like Dexter, goes over and just kills
yeah,
him and sitting there explaining to him the whole time, this makes me feel better, I'm not trying to, no, you're just making this worse. I'm just but to me a lot of those kind of things help shape this world even more. But and the glasses, showing what the meeting with Sirach with Charlotte, finding out that she was basically the mole and
yeah, yeah,
jealous the whole time, and the fact that she's been the mole for a while, and that Sirach doesn't know that she's a host now.
yeah. He
So
doesn't know.
that's a very interesting thing. And they're talking about how Dolores has the key. So
But did Charlotte know that?
that's what I'm saying. That's what I was
Yeah.
getting at. Like,
So it's like everybody's getting pieces of knowledge, but not the whole picture.
yeah,
But how much of that is part of Dolores's plan as well? I wonder. Especially with Bernard. Everything Bernard is going to be doing, I'm going to be questioning whether or not it's him, it's his free will, or it's something Dolores has set into motion.
but see, this also reminds me of The Office. think, let me explain.
Okay.
Because think there's an episode where Jim doesn't explain to, like Jim is trying to go for a promotion, but it's basically where him and Michael co-run the office.
Yes, I know the
And
episode.
he doesn't tell Michael because he feels like if Michael tries to help him, it'll hurt him.
But it sabotages him.
Yes. But by not telling him, he made it worse.
Mm-hmm.
So by by Dolores like not giving people information like this, like by whoever's in Charlotte, by not letting her know that Dolores is this key piece or something like this, is it going to end up hurting that? Or if whoever Chibs is, whether it's Teddy or William or some other random person, I don't know, like, or if withholding information from Bernard or whoever, is this in the end, by withholding these pieces instead of just coming forward with the plan from the get-go, is that going to end up hurting or helping? Like,
True. And did she account for Stubbs?
I don't
Or,
know.
so yeah, you're right. There are definitely factors that she may not have foreseen that could affect things.
But that
Good.
being said, with a lot of those things happening, like I really liked this episode. But to me, like last episode, it wasn't a standalone episode, but by itself, it told a story. This episode felt like a segue to another episode.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, like I said, this one was pretty straightforward and told, push the story along, moving the pieces around. Another great interaction between Caleb and Dolores. I think that's going to become a internet thing. People are really going to be into those two characters. I still have this fear that it's going to end tragic. Now, I had a thought when he was standing on the dock, and it kept doing flashes of like him in the future, potentially about to end it all. Was that him thinking about what could be, or is that a flash of the actual future? That was one of my thoughts.
Well, because remember, how many times did, because everything with William, well, young William, the guy from Always Sunny, that was in the past. Like that
Yes.
wasn't, and the Man in Black stuff was the current timeline stuff. So,
Hmm.
like, how much of that stuff is, all this stuff with Caleb, is this running currently, or is this, past stuff? So it was like you said, it was all the stuff where he's seeing that. Is that stuff that's like current, or stuff that could happen, or just like she said, how many times do you come here at night and contemplate it? So that could just be flashes of him, not necessarily, future or past, like just times where he sat there and was like, shit.
There was one. Well, the one shot that got me thinking was there was a particular shot where he had like a shaved head, and
Oh,
I was,
okay.
it
But that
just
could
got
have
me.
been right after the military, though.
Could absolutely.
Yeah.
You're 100%. Yeah. I mean, the show I don't think has answered that. It was just something that got me thinking. With this show, you never,
Yeah.
you never know what they're doing. I am excited about next week. Getting back to the Man in Black, seeing what the hell, how he at
Good
all.
Lord. Yeah. Because there was still really there was just him stuck in that little, basically hell.
Yeah, actually, yeah. Um, yeah, all in all, yeah, still my favorite episode was the second one with Maeve of this season. That actually might be one of my favorites of the series. It might definitely in my top five. But yeah, this episode was fine.
I liked it a lot just because a lot of the episodes throughout the series have not just raised a bunch of questions, like they don't answer a lot of questions. And that's Jonathan. No, that's the Nolan thing, is they don't answer questions until the end. And then they don't really answer them. They just kind of,
Yeah, that's
they
true.
kind of point you in the right direction without answering them. But this one raised a lot of questions, but it gave you some points in directions, I guess, not necessarily right directions or wrong directions. So I really, really liked this episode amongst, a lot better than a lot of previous episodes. But like you said, one of my favorite episodes out of all the episodes was the second episode of the season,
Um,
the War World.
yeah, I loved season one. I think season one was as close to perfect as a show can get. Season two, I liked a lot, but I didn't think it was as perfect as season one. So far, we're only three in. I would rank, and like I said, this could change hell in a week. I would rank so far this season being above season two. I think it's going in that direction. I think Caleb's a big part of that.
Well,
And it is early to make that call, but just based on what's happening.
I think that season 3 has started a lot better than season 2 started.
Yeah.
Season 2 ended amazing. Like the last couple
Hmm.
episodes of season 2 were tremendous, but it started with so many more questions that never really answered from the first season. You're just like, Jesus Christ, you didn't even answer the first, 75 questions that I had from season 1. You just gave me 30 new questions. But I think that they just kind of they simplified it a little bit. They didn't add a whole lot of new things to the beginning of this season, which I think helped a lot. And then they're just kind of pointing you towards one bad guy that you think's a bad guy, and you're not really sure whether or not they're the bad guy. And then, a bunch of gray area, whether Bernard's going to end up being the bad guy, Maeve's going to end up being the bad guy, or Dolores. You
Yeah.
don't really know they're all kind of gray areas with different agendas. So, but I think that helps simplify it a lot as opposed to, season 2. Jesus, there's
Yeah,
so many
yeah.
people.
I think that about covers it. If is there any other thoughts about the episode?
Uh, no, I mean,
It's one of those things you will get off, and then like 30 minutes later, you're like, "Damn it!
yeah,
I had this one thought." I try. What I usually typically do is I write down notes throughout the whole episode, and then I'll sit down and then I'll organize them somewhat. But then sometimes some of my notes I don't know what I meant. I'm like, wait, what? What? Um,
well, and we had talked about it before. The whole Dolores having autonomy over whatever system it is that she's talking to, because she's able to have access to hotel rooms, money, the AI system. So I don't know what it is that she's hacked into, but she has control over quite a bit of shit.
yeah.
Because like she's just like talking
Well,
in her
she's
earpiece, and
yeah.
she got a hotel room. She got control of shit. She's
Well, even knowing all the stuff about Caleb, she's clearly communicating with insight and to some degree.
yes,
So
yes, and how much control does Insight have? Apparently, a lot. So it's whatever she hacked into has control over everything. So even that being said is pretty crazy too.
yeah. Well, I guess that's about it for the show. Yeah, we'll just continue our quarantine lives and looking forward to next week's episode. And we will be back next week with another discussion about episode 4 of season 3 of Westworld. Any final words?
No, quarantine, great.
Quarantine. There we go. All right, everybody, wash your hands. Be safe. We'll see you next week.
6 feet.
Yes.